to Towers Take on Facebook Live. Glad to see you. Hope you can hear me and see me okay. Coming to you from a new location. Trying to get you dialed up here so that I can see your comments. And I'll let you know about that. Yep. Several comments here already. Thank you very much. Hello, Maurice Carter, John Anthony, Brian Anthony Cook, George Wrigley, G.F. Graham. You know, there was a time that I was actually going to write under my given name initials, R.F. Towers. So it's interesting seeing you there, GF. And I decided to just go with my nickname, Chip. And it was probably a terrible decision. Let me hear your questions. Let me see your comments, and I'll comment on them as best as possible. Be a little bit of an abbreviated show again today. Connor Riley, our producer, has places to get to. I do too. And, generally speaking, there's not a lot going on at Georgia, less than usual, I guess. As far as I know, there hasn't been anybody entered a transfer portal today, or a coach come or go. I guess since I spoke to you last week, Charlton Warren was hired as the defensive backs coach. Good hire. Insofar as I can tell, he's moved around a lot in recent years. North Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, I think in consecutive years. And that's after being at Air Force for like 10 years. Excuse me, I got a little bit of a rough voice here, and we can always use a little coffee. Everybody, please help yourself to your coffee at your house. Hope you're getting a chance to have some lunch. Chris Free says, Charlie Warner, Wildcat Pride, number 89. That's an interesting subject. Speaking of tight ends, let's keep throwing Connor curves and see if he can get some resident video or photos up. Charlie Warner's going to have a big job in 2019. I mean, he's the lone experienced tight end left. And, the thing about people talk about a lot that Georgia underutilized their tight ends. And obviously that's a reference to the passing game. But the fact of the matter is Georgia had tight ends on the field a lot. They ran a lot of double tight end stuff. They ran tight ends out of the backfield as H-backs, blocking backs. They have to block all the time in Georgia's running game. And, now you lose Luke Ford, who I think it was pretty clear was the best of the tight ends. Good job there, Connor. He's got Todd Hartley coming up there, the new tight ends coach. He's really going to have a challenge because I think it's clear that Luke Ford was the best of the freshmen, at least out of the box. Him and John Fitzpatrick came in last year. Luke Ford played a good bit and showed the potential to play probably more. Now he's transferred to Illinois. Isaac Nada obviously turns pro. He's down in Boca Raton training for the NFL draft. And that leaves Charlie Warner and John Fitzpatrick. Now, I should say this, and I don't think – hello, Derek Tillman. Good to see you, man. Georgia does have several walk-on tight ends, and I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, big deal, walk-on. They got some pretty big hosses over there that can help with the depth. But honestly, I think getting through spring practice is going to be a challenge because those tight ends have to be on the field a lot. And Charlie Warner and John Fitzpatrick are obviously going to be taking a lot of those snaps. I don't know what Georgia's got left on the recruiting scene. You guys tell me. I'm looking at your comments here. If if Jeff Sentell thinks that there's going to be another tight end in the class or a JUCO that comes in here, I keep messing up the comments. Sorry about there. But that's going to be a little bit of an issue. I like most everything else about Georgia's roster, particularly on the offensive side. Actually, both sides. I like Georgia's defense too. I think they're going to be a lot better this year. So Charlton. I wonder if anybody calls him Charlie. Charlton Warren, joins his defensive backs. I am not 100% sure that he won't get a defensive coordinator title. I don't think he'd be sole defensive coordinator. I think at least part of that equation is going to be going to Dan Lanning. I think that was the plan all along with Mel Tucker trying to take him to Dan Lanning to Colorado as their defensive coordinator. Kirby asked him to stay. I think getting part of a coordinator title was part of that. Kirby likes to give young guys chances, just like he was a young guy and got a chance for a big responsibility from Nick Saban, and obviously he has a heavy hand when it comes to defense. And part of that title might go to Charlton Warren. I mean, it's generally um, uncommon to see a lateral move such as Charlton Warren, based on money alone. Usually there's a title with it. I know certainly Jim Chaney did that at Tennessee. His situation was somewhat unique in that his past history with Tennessee, having property up there, retirement plans, all those kind of things, I think figured into it, not the least of which is making him the highest paid offensive coordinator in football. I don't think that's the case that you're going to have with Dan Lanning and Charlton Warren, but that's my prediction how that turns out. Georgia basketball. Anybody been keeping up with that? Obviously, it's not going too well. Bulldogs fall to 1-5 in the SEC last night with a 92-82 loss at number 25 LSU. Georgia most certainly has been going through a gauntlet in the SEC. Every opponent they've played has been a top 50 opponent, including Vanderbilt, who almost knocked off their only win. That was their only win. Almost knocked off Tennessee last night, like probably should have. I don't know if you guys saw that game. And Georgia actually, excuse me, I'm wanting to cough again. Georgia actually played pretty good at LSU, really good in the second half. They played sloppy and were just really reckless with the ball. 11 turnovers in the first half against LSU. In the second half, I really thought they started to answer some of the challenges that Tom Crean has been giving them with regards to how to run that offense. And I think you saw that in the second half. A lot of dunks, a lot of cuts to the basket. Jordan Harris, who got his second straight start at point guard, makes 4 buckets all on cut layups. A lot of dunks. Agbaidi, Rayshawn Hammonds, and Nick Claxton really getting it done on the front line. Obviously, Georgia's problem is in the backcourt, as we've said ad nauseum, and they very, very much pray for UGA basketball, says Philip Jordan Wells. I think that's a good plan for this season because, I buy the rhetoric from Tom Crean. I really do. I mean, he just doesn't have the right parts for his system, but he's got to get his system in and show, his team what it needs to do, and then certainly recruits. And Anthony Edwards is priority number one for the Bulldogs. 5-star, 6'5" guard from Atlanta, number 1 ranked prospect in America. Georgia's trying to get him. So is Kentucky. So is Kansas. So is North Carolina. So you're gonna have to fight that game, And so Crean's getting a firsthand look at sort of what you have to deal with at Georgia basketball, trying to keep all the regal royal programs out of your state, plucking the best talent. And he's selling that hard, like, hey, you can do it here. He's even selling, as I understand it, the one and done. You won't come here and be one and done. That's fine. We'll do one and done. Come to Georgia. We can make all your dreams come true. And I think he knows how to do that. Certainly, he's put a lot of good players in the NBA, and that's his sales job. But right now, they got a long way to go. Though I saw considerable progress in the second half. And so this weekend, Georgia hosts Texas in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. That'll be played at Stegeman Coliseum Saturday at 2:00. I'll be there. Mike Griffith will be there. Interesting game, especially playing Texas coming off the Sugar Bowl. I'm sure they'll there'll be a pretty good representation of Texas fans there with anticipating the chant, just like football. Georgia needs to be focused on not letting that um, happen. Mark Smith says Nate McBride at fullback. Georgia doesn't use a fullback anymore. Just in. Um, if he could play tight end, but he's too small for that. Can we call Dominique Wilkins to come back and play for the Dogs? Yeah, Dominique would be awesome. That's what they need. They need the problem with Georgia right now is they just don't have enough players. Even Nick Claxton, as great as he is and versatile as he is a guy who just can't create his own shot all that much. His shot generally has to come out of the offense, and that's why that's been such a struggle. Why it's so important to Tom Crean to get them to run in that system right. And I think they're getting close to it. And look, it's going to be one of those years, guys. I don't think we're going to see any postseason play for the Bulldogs, but they will. I do see progress, and they'll get better over the year. And you got to have patience. I mean, it's just they wouldn't be in this situation if Mark Fox was still here, which doesn't mean that Mark Fox should still be here. It just means that he had the parts and pieces, to fit his system better than the ones that are here now as far as Crean's system. And of course, you'd have Ashton Hagens too if he were still here. So Sam Hazeltine wants to know how recruiting is going. It's going great. You're only going to sign, yeah, I know for football. You're only going to sign a few players in this class. Obviously, Georgia is hotly focused on Khair Elam, the cornerback from Florida, who Charlton Warren is playing a big role in. Probably need to get a tight end. Might even get another quarterback or a running back out of this bunch. I don't know, but defensive line is always the focus. That's where Georgia has to get better. They don't have many scholarships left to sign. Georgia's class, I think, is still ranked number 2 in the composite. So recruiting is going well. Hello, Fred Pittman. Welcome. Yeah, well, you're right. John Anthony says FSU claims he will sign there. That's a little bit old, as I understand it. FSU was a long early leader for Edwards, but and look, I'm not making a bunch of personal calls to Edwards' camp on this or his coaches right now. I'll get a little bit more involved as we go down the line, but my understanding is Georgia actually leads for him right now. But he had an official visit to Georgia 2 weekends ago, and an official visit to Kentucky last week. Kentucky's hot and heavy on him, and that's always a challenge when you play those guys. Yeah, Pickens, the wide receiver, George Pickens, is another guy that. Again, I don't think Georgia's wide receiver core is quite as desperate as a lot of other people listed. I mean, yeah, everybody would like the 5-star superstar wide receiver, but I think Georgia's receivers are pretty doggone good as it is, and I think Dominic Blaylock's going to be better than most realize, and I honestly believe Demetrius Robertson has still got a lot of good football left in him. I don't think last year was an accurate representation of what he is or what he's going to be. Shocked that he didn't get a catch a pass all season. It's too bad he wasn't able to get a red shirt out of that year, but I think he'll be a big part of the offense this year, especially with Godwin and Hardman gone. That opens up some opportunities in that flanker position, maybe in the return game as well with McCole Hardman gone. D-Rob's a returner as well. And I agree with Ricky Jett here. He says Holloman is a beast. I think J.J. Holloman's a great player. I think he's exactly what you need. Possession receiver, big guy, strong guy. Tommy Bush, Matt Landers, these other 6'5" guys that haven't been on the field yet. They're still developing. One of those guys may actually end up as a tight end before it's over. Let's see here. Just had a phone call come in there and it kind of messed up my reading your comments. There we go. Hey, Stacy D4. Good to see you here. Joseph Howard asking about tight end. One of those big guys, I don't know if this is happening, but I'm just they need some depth at tight end, and I don't know whether they'll convert a tackle or perhaps a receiver like Tommy Bush or Matt Landers and try to put some size on it. But they need some more bodies over there. I don't think there's any question. Um, Philip Jordan Wells sees two more spots opening up before February. Do you really? Who do you see opening up over there? Uh, uh, yeah, Trey Blount, Dan Fox. Yeah, Trey Blount's a good player. I really think he is an excellent blocker for sure. Um, and Derek Tillman talks about Matt Landers here. We've got to see what that young man has. Certainly, him and Tommy Bush both came here to great fanfare. We only have about 5 more minutes left. Hey, before I forget, now baseball season is getting ready to start as well. We'll do a little something on it. I actually like this type of time of year where you got a little bit of football mixed in, some spring football. I mean, we all prefer football season, right? But you got baseball starting up. Georgia's baseball team, Scott Strickland, big year for him. Um, Ninth, 10th, top 10 everywhere you look. So they should be in the mix for the NCAA tournament for sure. And I'm eager to see what that team looks like. Tell me how you feel about baseball coverage, because it's one of those things we don't get a lot of. Hey, Randy Williamson, what's happening? We don't get a lot of feedback on that. We don't see a lot of traffic on baseball, much in the way basketball is. But we will respond to your coverage request, and if it's something you want to see a lot of, we'll get out there and cover it pretty heavy. As it is, we just kind of hit it a little bit on the beginning end. Hey, Ryan Swabley, what's happening, buddy? So James Barden asked a question that everybody likes to ask. How is Amir White's recovery going? It's going very, very well. All indications I get. I'm interested to see or hear from Kirby Smart or whoever can say definitively as to how much he will work in spring practice. I wouldn't expect any contact at all. I imagine he'll run through drills and all that kind of stuff, much like he did toward the end of last season. But I don't think you'll see any 11-on-11 scrimmage work or contact work with him. Yeah, that's interesting. Any chance you can recruit my Sam Hazelton? I went to Bishop England High School. Is there any chance you can recruit my football players? I don't have anything to do with it. That's interesting. But you got if you have players, I promise you, Georgia and all the other programs are going to find them. What else is on your mind? So looks like Georgia's football staff is solidified. Looks like the basketball team's going to be in for a long year. Looks like the gymnastics team's getting back to where it used to be. The women's basketball program is, I think, a little bit disappointing to this point. I think Joni Taylor would say as much. Buddy Rowe, Buddy Rowe Guerrer says James Cook, and no other comment. Yeah, James Cook's part of the equation with the running backs. I think Georgia's going to be fine at running back. I mean, I think DeAndre Swift and Brian Harrion represent much of the same rotation as you had last year in Swift and Elijah Holyfield. And you got James Cook is quite a change up. And I'm eager to see about the big kid, Kenny McIntosh. Kirby's been talking a while. They need to get a little bit bigger and physical at the position, at least have that change up. Kenny McIntosh is supposed to provide that. But, I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia landed another back in here. And I like Georgia's defense. I like Georgia's special teams. And I like their offense. So I think they should definitely be in the mix this next year. I'm going to have to wrap it up here. We got to get out of here. Connor Raleigh has some places to be. I'll take one or two more questions if you have any. But otherwise, thanks for hanging out for Towers Take. Yeah, Chase Robinson brings up a good one. Kyrus Jackson. See, there's a lot of those guys that didn't play much previous year were either redshirted or played spot roles that you kind of forget about. You always tend to focus on the seniors and established players and the incoming freshmen, but there's a whole group of players in there that's been training up and working up and trying to get on the field. Um, I think they will. Um, Buddy Rose says Glenn Schumann for defensive coordinator. Maybe that he could get a co-title along with Lanning if they didn't require a title for Charlton Warren. Brandon Burton, no, there is not an official DC. John Anthony, yes, I agree that Lanning will be at least part of the equation at DC. Hey, Ron Williams, thanks for joining us, but you're a little late. We're just signing off here. So let me wrap it up. Looking forward to a great 2019. Lots of more coverage from you. Mike Griffith was out in Mobile, Alabama, and filed some really good stuff on the Senior Bowl. I think he's on his way back at this point. We'll both be providing coverage of the Texas basketball game on Saturday. Baseball's getting ready to crank up. I think their official practices crank up, and their games start in February. National Signing Day on February 6th, and a lot going on. So for Connie Raleigh and everybody at Dog Nation, I want to thank you for hanging out on Towers Take on Facebook Live. We'll be back next week at roughly the same time. Hopefully we'll be closer to 12:30 next week. Thanks for hanging out, and until next time, so long.